We're going to be learning tons of new skills and creating a lot of fun new projects this semester. We're going to learn how to create keyframe animation, which will allow you to have certain elements move in your video projects. You'll learn how to make a heart appear to beat and even create lightning on the screen. We'll also be shooting and editing a stop motion animation project coming up and creating a Super Bowl commercial. So we've got a lot of exciting projects just ahead. We're going to begin with a refresher on Premiere Pro, including the basic setup of the Premiere Pro interface, a refresher on some editing basics, including making your cuts, moving your clips around, and a lot more. It's been a few weeks since we've been in the program, and if you're not the one who normally does the editing for your group, you may have gotten a little rusty on how everything works. I want to go through our objectives for today. So our objectives are to refresh your memory on how to create new projects in Premiere Pro, how to import and organize your footage, and how to make some basic cuts. We'll also be looking at some of the specific functions within each major window of Premiere Pro. This semester, when we finish our refresher on Premiere Pro, we're going to be breaking out the cameras again. You'll be learning a lot of the functions and features and how you can really use them to get really creative shots. We're also going to be working a lot more with audio, since most of our projects last semester just involved music overlays, and we'll be working with lighting and how to get it all set up to make your videos look really great. So we're going to begin by opening Premiere Pro and creating a project. Now, you're probably going to remember how to launch Premiere Pro. You just are going to go to your applications window. You may have it down in your dock as well, but you're going to go to your applications window, find this purple PR folder, Adobe Premiere Pro, and just double click it and then double click it again. And you should see it down here in your dock, just kind of bouncing up and down as it launches. It's going to take just a couple minutes to launch, and then it'll open up into the home screen. All right, so this is our home screen, and you're going to remember from last semester, I know it's been a few weeks, but you're going to remember that you can either create a new project or open an existing project, and you should have a listing of projects that you've worked on, at least a few of them, even if you weren't the editor on most of your big projects. For today, you're going to go ahead and create a new project, and that's going to open up this new project dialog window. And you're going to see a lot of things, but you're probably going to remember from last semester, you don't really necessarily need to change a lot. Really, all you need to change here is the title of your project, and we're just going to call it Premiere Pro Refresher, and just put your last name, and we'll click OK. For now, that's really all you need to do. You don't need to download your video at this point or do anything with it. We'll do it at the end. I just want to make sure that you're watching me and you know how to do everything. So we've created our new project. Now, when you first open it, it may open up and look like this, or it may open up to this learning workspace. If it does, that's fine. Couple things about that. These are some really great tutorials over here on the left-hand side. Premiere Pro overview, learning the basics, creative and stylistic edits. These are all really great, and I would encourage you when we have downtime to go in, watch these, and you can learn all kinds of stuff. Some of it that we're already learning, some of it that we will be learning, some of it will be a review. But they're there for you. But it also takes up a lot of space that we don't necessarily want taken up. So instead of being in this learning tab, up here at the top are all your different workspaces. Up at the top in the middle, we're going to just go to editing, and that kind of gets rid of them. If you want to go back to them again, if there's some downtime or somebody else is working on your group's project, go in and watch these. They're really great. But for now, we're going to be in the editing workspace. Just a quick couple seconds on workspaces. We'll go over these more later. You can go into the effects workspace and You can find all your effects here. On the right hand side, if you're in the editing workspace, that effects tab is down here behind your project panel. We'll go back to the project panel. You can also do a couple other things. You can work on color, kind of adjusting all the color in your footage, color grading it, making it look a lot better, bringing up your highlights and your black and white values and your saturation and things like that if you want to. You can work on audio in a specific workspace. You can work in the graphics workspace as well, and there's a few others here as well. If your workspace pulls up, it doesn't quite look like this. Again, you might be in the learning workspace. In that case, just go to editing. But if it doesn't quite look like this, you may have to kind of go back and reset. You can just go to Window, Workspaces, and reset to save layout, and it'll fix it. If you're still not quite seeing it like this, you should see these 4 major windows and your toolbar, and then over here are your audio, where your audio levels will be. But if it doesn't look like this, again, you can just go to Window, Workspaces, Reset to Save Layout. If it still looks a little weird, just let me know. We'll take a look. Could be that one of these windows is unchecked and maybe going to reset didn't quite fix it. So we can fix it if it doesn't quite look like that for you. All right. So again, 4 major windows. Let's take a look at those. As I click on them, you'll see that there's a blue bar or a blue border all around it. Your project panel down here in the left-hand corner. Above that is your source monitor. Down here in the right-hand corner, kind of all along, almost all along the whole bottom 2/3 here, is your timeline, and then the program monitor. So project panel, source monitor, timeline, program monitor. All right, what do they do? We'll go through those. So your project panel, that's where we're going to bring in footage. We're going to be able to bring in all of our raw video clips, any pictures that we want, any audio that we want, including music, any graphics. Whenever we create text elements, they're going to save in here. We can do a lot of organization that I'm going to show you how to do a little bit later as we move along in this refresher. But for now, just remember this is kind of where we bring in all of our elements, and it's where we can organize all of our elements. Your source monitor is then where you can kind of view that footage, scrub through it, put in and out points, create an edited clip. Once we have an edited clip, we move it down here to the timeline, and we can put one clip right after the other. We can put clips on top of each other. We can move them around in all kinds of creative ways, but this is the timeline. And then the program monitor is where we can see the actual visual video output of what we're building here in the timeline. Because in the timeline, of course, we're just going to see the building blocks. So let's kind of take a look and see, just a reminder of how all this works. So in the project panel, we're going to want to import our video. Now, you may remember from last semester, there are several different ways that you can do that. My favorite way to import video into the project is just simply to double click inside of the project panel. Just a reminder, you want to make sure that it's outlined in blue so you know you have it selected. But I just like to double click it, and then I'm going to go to my downloads. We can go to our recent files, and I'm going to be able to find what I want. So I want this riverboat clip, I know that. So I'm just going to find it, double click on it, and it's going to import it. I could have also found that file and clicked import down in the right hand corner. Another way that I can find the file that I want, I can go to File, Import, so File, Import, and then find the next file that I want. So from my recent files, I know I want this Tennessee waterfall. Again, I can double click it, bring it in. Another way I can go inside the project panel here. Again, remember it needs to be blue all around it. I'm going to go Command I, keyboard shortcut, and there's one called Batman building that I want. So let me see if I can find that. Yeah, Batman building. So we've got that. So now I've got these 3 clips in, and I brought those in 3 different ways. A couple other ways that we could do it. We could just simply find the file that we wanted, if it's on our desktop or whatever, and just drag it in. And also there's this media browser where we can kind of click through the file structure on our computer and find our downloads and bring it in that way as well. But let's go back here to the project panel. So now we've got all 3 of those clips. Now we're going to take a little bit more of a look at this later, but a couple things I want you to know how to do. If your clips don't look like this when you bring them in, if you're only seeing the names of the clips and some information about them, but not the actual video, you may have it in list view. So down here at the bottom, in the bottom left-hand corner of the project panel, you've got a couple of different options. List view, which is just going to kind of give you a listing of the clips that you put in, or icon view, which is going to give you all of the different you're going to be able to see the thumbnails of all those clips. So you can kind of go back and forth. There's a couple of other options here. One of them is you can see the clips a little bigger, so you can use the slider to make the clips bigger or smaller, as the case may be. And then once you've got it to a size that you like, you can do what's called a hover scrub. So you can hover your cursor over these clips and you'll see that they move. When you go back and forth, left and right on these, you'll see that these clips will actually move. You're not seeing every frame of it, you're just kind of seeing a quick look at it, but it could help you quickly identify the clip that you need. These are pretty distinctively different clips, but if you had some that were pretty similar but you're looking for something very specific, it could help you just to kind of hover scrub through those and find what you need. So once we're here, we're looking at it all, and we want to actually make, we want to edit. We want to look at the footage and we want to edit it. So let's take the riverboat first. We're going to look at it in the source monitor. So remember, the source monitor is where we can look at the footage, we can scrub through it, and we can create in and out points. To get it up here in this window, we can either click and drag it up there, or we can simply double click it and then we see it. You're going to see the video itself, and then under it you're going to remember our familiar little blue playhead that goes along the little mini timeline under it, and you're going to be able to scrub through it and see all of the footage now. And wherever this blue playhead is, that's where we can make an edit point. So we're going to want to go ahead and put our first edit point, which is an endpoint. So let's say that we want to start it right when we can kind of see the whole boat here. So right there, we've got kind of the back of it kind of cut off. So we're going to move it to right here where we can see the whole boat. So we're moving that blue playhead. When we've got it where we want it, all we have to do is press I on our keyboard, and you're going to see from this point forward, it turns gray on this little mini timeline within that window. And then we can just simply move it. Maybe we just want a couple quick seconds of it until the whole bow there is all the way in sight. And then we're going to press O to create an out point. So here was our endpoint where you see this little blue bracket, and here is our out point where you see this blue bracket, and you see the gray in between is what all is included. And so we have an endpoint and an out point. Now we could have alternatively, we could have marked in and marked out with these brackets on the screen. So we could have done that with our mouse as well, but we did it with the keyboard shortcuts I and O. So now that we have our edited clip, all we have to do is move it right down onto the timeline to start building out our sequence. So now this is where we actually kind of start doing stuff. Now I do know that some of you have just pulled your whole clip over, right? And then just kind of trimmed it within the timeline. And you can do that if you want. But I really encourage you to start using the source monitor, not just to create an extra step, but you just get a more precise edit. And if you were to have some clips on here, and then maybe you decide you want to pull over the whole entire clip, then you could overwrite something. So like if you had your in and out, you didn't really have in and out points, you just had the whole clip and you tried to bring it in, you could accidentally overwrite the stuff that you've already put on there. So I'm going to do Command Z to undo that. So it just makes the clips a little bit more manageable if you go ahead and just put in and out points like that. Just makes it a little bit easier to work with. All right, so far we've gone through our project panel. That's where we import and store all of our footage. We've looked at our source monitor where we're able to scrub through our footage, and we're able to create in and out points. Again, in point is I, output is O, and wherever we've moved our blue playhead is where we can put those. You can also just simply play the video in the source monitor just simply by hitting the play button, and then stop the playback by hitting the stop button, which is pretty much in the exact same place. You can also hit the space bar and hit it again to stop the playback, and that'll do that as well. So that's playing the video within the source monitor. So we've moved it down to the timeline now. So let's talk about the timeline. So the timeline is where we place these edited clips, and we just can place one clip right after the other. Now they don't all have to be in an exact line. We could put one on top of the other, and we could do a variety of different things. We can move them around once they're in the timeline, but this is where we actually build out our sequence. And one thing that you'll notice when we put the clips, when we put our first clip onto the timeline, it actually kind of populated all these different things, all these different tracks and all these different tools over here. It created this little timeline along the top. Before, it was just a blank window. But as soon as you pull a clip into it, it creates that timeline and populates all those different things. Now, a couple things that I want you to notice about the timeline. It's separated into two sets of tracks. So all of your video tracks, again, are on top. All of your audio clips are on the bottom, or the audio portion of your clip is on the bottom. Now, in this particular case, these three files that we have are only video files, and so they don't have any, only video files, and they don't have any audio associated with them, so we don't see anything below that. But if we had audio in the clip, again, that portion of the clip would go below onto the audio tracks, and then if you had a separate piece of audio, like a piece of music, it would go onto the audio track as well, and not on these upper tracks, which are just for video. And you can kind of see it's sort of a double little line, kind of a gray line that separates it. So you can move these up, and in theory, really, you can put as many tracks as you want, but if you have too many, it's going to get a little out of control. And you'll notice if I try to move this video clip down to an audio track, it's not going to work. And then of course, when you want to watch and see what you've done, all you have to do is play it back, play your sequence out, and you're going to be able to view it here in the program monitor. So the program monitor is where you see the visual output of what we've been building. So down in the timeline itself, all you're going to see are the building blocks, these little clips that we put in, but you're not going to actually see the visual output of it. That's what the program monitor is for. And then to play it, again, you can move that playhead back and forth and scrub through, or you can hit the space bar to play it, hit the space bar again to stop, or you can hit the stop and start buttons or stop and play buttons on screen on the program monitor as well. Just a little bit about trimming within the timeline again. You'll remember that once you have a clip placed here, you can adjust the size of it. As long as you actually have media that's been shot, that's part of that clip. It's not going to add anything that wasn't actually filmed, but you can drag it out to the extent of what was shot. And you can drag it in to make it shorter, and you can drag it out to make it longer. And if we needed to extend this piece in the middle, we could just move that down, make that a little bit longer, and then move it back. There's a little bit easier way to do that I'll show you later, but for now that's really all you need to know on that. And just remember, again, you just sort of hover your cursor over either end of the clip, and you can bring it in or extend it out and then move it back. And you should feel sort of a slight magnetic pull to the clips because we have something on called snapping in the timeline, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But for now, we've got all these snapped together, and this is what we've created. We put all three of these clips together, all in a row, and as it plays out, it's going to show all of these clips. If we think this is a little bit long, once again, we can go through and shorten them up, move everything together, make it a little bit shorter, and you're going to see up here, if we want it to be 10 seconds altogether, they're little time indicators both at the top corner of the timeline and the bottom corner of the program monitor. So if I want it to be 10 seconds total, I can move it to be 10 seconds and then trim it back to that, and then we'll play it out, and it's a little bit shorter. All right, so just to recap, you should know after watching this, or you should be reminded, you should be refreshed on how to launch Premiere Pro, how to create a new project or open an existing project. You should know how to give your project a name. You should know the 4 major windows within Premiere Pro: the project panel, the source monitor, the timeline, and the program monitor. You should have a good idea of what they do. The project panel is where we import, store, and organize all of our footage and media. The source monitor is where we can view the contents of our footage, scrub through it, create in and out points. The timeline is where we move the edited clips and build out a sequence. A sequence is a series of video clips and other media placed in a certain order on our timeline. And just a reminder that the timeline consists of tracks for video and audio, the video on the top, audio on the bottom. And the program monitor is where we can view the sequence that we're building, not just the building blocks, but the actual video. So now what I want you to do is to go into Schoology, find these 3 video clips, the Riverboat, Tennessee Waterfall, and Batman Building, and I want you to download those. I want you to import them into Premiere Pro. I want you to create quick little 5-second clips, and again, you can kind of see here how long they are, and once they're on the timeline, you can kind of see how long they are. So like, for example, this riverboat clip is about 2 seconds long, almost 3 seconds long. This one is about 5 seconds long, and this one is just about 3 seconds long. And but make yours about 5 seconds each. Put them onto the timeline and show me that you know how to play it back. And then I'll come around and check you off, and we'll be done. So tomorrow we will continue our refresher of Premiere Pro.